Dad's silent revenge.
Get this old man out of my garage. I don't want him around my kids anymore with his health problems. That's what my daughter-in-law Ashley screamed at my son Dennis that night. He didn't argue. The next morning, he knocked on my door and said, "Dad, maybe it's time you found your own place." I packed my bags and left their house forever. But I took more than just my belongings with me. I took $6.8 million they never knew I had. I'm Harold Coleman, 58 years old, and I thought I knew what betrayal felt like when my wife Sarah died 3 years ago. Turns out I was wrong. The whole mess started when I went for my annual physical last month. Blood pressure running a bit high, blood sugar creeping up toward pre-diabetic levels. Nothing serious, doc said it was manageable with diet, exercise, and maybe some medication down the road. Standard stuff for guys my age who spent 30 years hunched over engineering drawings and living on coffee and stress. But when I came home with the prescription bottles, Ashley acted like I'd brought the plague into her house. She stood in their kitchen, staring at the blood pressure medication like it was a death sentence. "What does this mean for the children?" she asked Dennis, not me, like I wasn't standing right there. See, he'd been living in their converted garage apartment for 2 years now. After Sarah passed, Dennis insisted I move in. "Dad, you shouldn't be alone right now," he said. "The kids love having Grandpa around," and they did. Sophie, my 6-year-old granddaughter, would run to me every day after school, backpack bouncing, wanting to show me her math homework. Ryan, who just turned 4, called me his best buddy and insisted I read him stories every night before bed. I contributed $4,000 a month to household expenses. Ashley called it rent, but I knew I was paying for a lot more than my little 400 square foot space behind the washer and dryer. I was the free babysitter when Ashley needed to run errands or meet friends for lunch. I was the homework helper who actually checked Sophie's multiplication tables. I was the guy who fixed the garbage disposal when it jammed, rewired the outlet in the master bedroom when it started sparking, and reinforced the deck railing that was coming loose from the house. 30 years as a civil engineer teaches you to see structural problems before they become disasters. Same skill applies to families, apparently. Ashley never said thank you, never even acknowledged what I did. When the dishwasher started leaking and I spent a Saturday morning replacing the door seal, she just complained that I left water spots on her precious stainless steel finish. When I built Ryan a sandbox in their backyard, measuring, leveling, creating proper drainage so it wouldn't become a swamp, she worried it would hurt their property value. But I kept telling myself she was just stressed, trying to build her lifestyle blog while raising 2 kids. Ashley's Authentic Life, she called it. Pictures of perfectly arranged coffee cups and motivational quotes about living your best life while your toddler ate crackers off the floor. That night when I heard her screaming about getting me out, I was coming back from my evening walk around their subdivision. I like routine, always have. Same route every night, down Maple Street, around the retention pond, back past the community mailboxes. Helps me think, helps my blood pressure. 30 minutes of peace before I went back to playing the Grateful House guest. Their bedroom window was cracked open to let in the October breeze, and Ashley's voice cut through the Florida humidity like a reciprocating saw through plywood. "I'm done pretending to care about your father, Dennis. Hez dragging us down. What if he has a heart attack in front of the kids? What if he dies here? I've already found 3 assisted living places that take Medicaid." I stopped dead in their driveway, keys halfway to the garage door lock. "Ashley, he helps with the kids," Dennis said, but his voice sounded weak, defeated. Like a load-bearing beam that's been compromised and just waiting for the right pressure to snap. And he pays us $4,000 a month. That money barely covers what he costs us. The extra groceries, the utilities, the space we could rent out for real money. I'm starting my consulting business, and I need that garage converted into my office. He has to go. But where would he? I don't care where. A nursing home, some senior apartment, anywhere but here. Dennis, I'm 32 years old. I shouldn't have to live with your sick father watching my every move, judging how I raise my children. Sick father. Like my slightly elevated blood pressure made me some kind of invalid. I'd built bridges that carry 50,000 cars a day. I'd designed the structural systems for a 40-story office building that's been standing solid for 25 years. But because I needed to monitor my sodium intake and take a water pill, suddenly I was a burden too heavy for their perfect suburban life to bear. That's when I heard the sound that changed everything. Dennis agreeing. "Okay," he said so quietly, I almost missed it. "I'll talk to him tomorrow. Give me a week to figure out how to, break it to him gently." I stood there in their driveway listening to my own son agree to throw me away like a piece of broken equipment. No fight, no defense. No mention of the fact that I'd helped them buy this house with a $50,000 down payment gift 3 years ago. No acknowledgement of the $96,000 he'd contributed in rent over 24 months. Just surrender to his wife's selfishness and a promise to break it to me gently. That's when I knew I had to run a test. You see, what Ashley and Dennis didn't know was that I wasn't some broke old widower living on Social Security and a small pension. When I sold Coleman Engineering 5 years ago, the firm he'd built from scratch in a rented office space back in 1993, I got Forbes $8 million. Add in the real estate investments I'd made over the years, the life insurance payout from Sarah's death, some careful stock market moves during the tech boom, and I was sitting on $8 million in assets. But I'd been living like I had nothing, wanting to see who really cared about Harold Coleman the person, not Harold Coleman the millionaire. For 2 years, Id played the role of the dependent father, the grateful houseguest who was lucky to have family willing to take him in. The test was over. They'd failed spectacularly. I spent that night sitting on my narrow bed in the garage, listening to the washing machine cycle through its programs and planning my next move. By morning, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I spent the next week quietly planning my exit strategy. During the day, while Ashley was at the coffee shop with her laptop building her brand, I made some calls. First to Patricia Rodriguez, my estate planning attorney. We'd worked together when I sold the engineering firm, setting up trusts and tax shelters to protect the money. Patricia, it's Harold Coleman. I need to schedule a family meeting. Something's come up. Then to Leonard Cooper, my private banker at First National. We'd known each other for 15 years, ever since he was a junior associate and I was expanding my business. Leonard, I'm going to need access to some liquid assets soon, maybe $500,000 transferred to checking. Finally to Susan Campbell, a real estate agent who specialized in high-end properties in West Shore and Palmacia. Areas where engineers Hod made good money eventually retired. Susan, I'm in the market for something substantial. My budget is flexible, but I want to move fast. But I wasn't just planning my departure. I was gathering evidence. See, living in that garage apartment, I'd noticed things. Ashley's designer handbags kept multiplying Coach, Michael Kors, some Italian brand I couldn't pronounce. Her business lunches were always at the most expensive restaurants in Hyde Park. Shed bought a $3,000 camera for her blog, then spent another $2,000 on editing software she never figured out how to use. Meanwhile, she was telling Dennis they needed to cut back. That money was tight, that my $4,000 monthly contribution was barely enough to cover the extra costs of having him here. I started paying attention to where my money was really going. It wasn't covering groceries. I ate like a bird. Mostly oatmeal and soup. It wasn't utilities. My little space had one window AC unit and a mini fridge. Ashley was using my $4,000 to fund her lifestyle fantasies while Dennis worked 60-hour weeks at his software job, thinking they were barely scraping by on his $85,000 salary. The real breakthrough came when I found the credit card statements Shed hidden in her car. I wasn't snooping. Shed asked me to get her sunglasses from the glove compartment, and there they were. $47,000 in debt across 4 different cards. Luxury purchases, spa treatments, a weekend in Miami. Shed told Dennis was a business conference for lifestyle bloggers. She was living like a millionaire on a middle-class budget, using my money to pay the minimums while the interest ate them alive. Then I discovered something that made my blood run cold. Ashley had been selling my prescription medications online. The bottles I thought I was losing to typical old man forgetfulness. She was taking them. Blood pressure meds, the pre-diabetes medication the doctor had started me on as a preventative measure. Apparently there's a black market for that stuff among people without insurance. I started marking my pill bottles with tiny dots from an engineering pencil, the kind architects use for detail work. Sure enough, pills were disappearing faster than my prescribed dosage. She was stealing medication that kept me healthy and selling it to strangers on the internet. But the thing that really got me was how she was exploiting my grandchildren. Ashley's Instagram account, which Dennis didn't even know about because Shed told him she wasn't into social media anymore, was full of posts about raising kids while caring for elderly family. She was using Sophie and Ryan as props, posting pictures of them looking sad, with captions about how hard it was to manage Grandpa's health issues while trying to run a business. The sympathy comments were pouring in. "You're so strong, Ashley. I don't know how you do it. Caring for aging parents is such a sacrifice." And she was monetizing every single one, turning their pity into affiliate marketing commissions for everything from essential oils to meal planning services. Shed even applied for a charity grant using my military service record, 2 years in the Army Corps of Engineers right out of college. Nothing heroic but legitimate service. She was collecting $800 a month from some veterans organization, claiming she was a caregiver struggling to support a disabled veteran. I'm not disabled and I never needed her support, but she had the paperwork to prove I was a veteran living in her home, and that was enough. That's when I decided Ashley needed to learn what real consequences look like. I contacted a private investigator, a guy named Carl Hoffman, who'd done some work for my construction company years back when we had problems with a subcontractor skimming materials. Carl, I need everything documented. The theft, the fraud, the online schemes, everything legal, everything by the book. Carl worked fast. He had contacts in law enforcement, knew how to gather evidence that would hold up in court. Within a week, I had photographs of Ashley meeting with whoever was buying my medications in a Walmart parking lot, bank records showing the charity fraud, screenshots of her Instagram posts before she could delete them, video evidence of her coaching Sophie to look sad for the camera while talking about poor sick grandpa. The next phase was testing their loyalty one more time, just to be absolutely sure I wasn't overreacting. I called Dennis from my bedroom one evening. "Son, I need to tell you something. I might have to declare bankruptcy." The silence on his end told me everything I needed to know. "Bankruptcy? Dad, what happened?" "Your mother's medical bills, I lied. Turns out the insurance didn't cover as much as we thought. The estate lawyers found some old claims that are coming due. I might lose everything, including my ability to help with expenses here." Within an hour, Ashley was researching nursing homes. I heard her on the phone with her sister. "We can't afford to support him if his broke. I found a Medicaid place about an hour away. It's not great, but Dennis will just have to deal with it." No discussion of reducing her spending, no offer to help their family member in crisis. Just immediate plans to dump me somewhere out of sight where I wouldn't be their problem anymore. That's when I scheduled the meeting that would change everything. Patricia Rodriguez's office downtown has floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Tampa Bay. 32nd floor of the SunTrust building, with a view that reminds you why people moved to Florida in the first place. I'd asked her to invite Dennis and Ashley for what I called an estate planning discussion. They thought they were coming to hear about inheritance arrangements. Instead, they were walking into a reckoning. I arrived early, wearing my best suit, navy blue, tailored, the one I'd worn to close the biggest deal of my engineering career back in 2018. Patricia had everything laid out on her mahogany conference table. Financial statements, investigation reports, legal documents, evidence that would destroy Ashley's lies and force Dennis to see who Head really married. Dennis arrived in his work clothes looking nervous. Head probably told his boss he needed to leave early for a family emergency. Ashley wore a new dress that probably cost more than most people's weekly groceries. Designer everything, shoes, purse, jewelry that sparkled under Patricia's office lights. She had her phone ready, probably planning to live stream her emotional family moment for her followers. They sat across from me like we were about to negotiate a construction contract. Patricia took her place at the head of the table, legal pads and reading glasses making her look every inch the successful attorney she'd become. "Harold has asked me to review his financial situation with you both." Patricia began, her voice professional and controlled. "Given recent health concerns and living arrangements, he wants to ensure his family understands his estate planning decisions." Ashley leaned forward, trying to look concerned while her eyes gleamed with anticipation. She was probably calculating how much of my modest savings they'd inherit, planning her next shopping spree. Harold currently maintains investment accounts and real estate holdings totaling approximately $6.8 million, Patricia said, sliding documents across her mahogany desk. The color drained from Ashley's face like someone had opened a valve. Dennis just stared at the papers like they were written in ancient Greek. $6.8 million. Dennis whispered, "Dad, I thought, after Mom's medical bills and selling the house, downsizing. Your father's financial position has been stable throughout his retirement." Patricia continued, letting that sink in. "The monthly contributions he's made to your household, $96,000 over the past 2 years, were voluntary, not necessary for his survival." You could hear the air conditioning humming. Ashley's breathing had gone shallow and quick, like she was having some kind of panic attack. Dennis kept looking from the financial statements to my face, trying to process what he was hearing.
"Wait, Ashley found her voice first. You've been lying to us?"
"Pretending to be broke while we supported you." "Supported me?" I kept my voice level, like I was explaining load calculations to a junior engineer. "Ashley, let me show you what real support looks like." I nodded to Patricia, who slid a second folder across the table. This one contained Carl's investigation results. Bank records showing Ashley's secret spending. Photos of her selling my medications in parking lots. Screenshots of her fake charity applications and exploitative Instagram posts. "You've been stealing my prescription drugs and selling them online," I said, watching Ashley's face go from pale to green. "You've been defrauding veterans' charities using my service record, and you've been exploiting my grandchildren for sympathy money on social media platforms Dennis doesn't even know about." Dennis grabbed the photos, his hands shaking like he was having his own engineering crisis. "When you realize the foundation you built everything on was rotten from the start." "Ashley, what is this? You told me you deleted your Instagram account years ago." I can explain. Ashley started, but I cut her off. The explanation is simple. "You saw me as a burden to be managed and a resource to be exploited. You coached my grandchildren to perform sadness for your camera. You stole medication that keeps me healthy and sold it to strangers. You committed fraud using my military record. And when you thought I was broke, you immediately started shopping for the cheapest nursing home you could find." I stood up, feeling stronger than I had in months. "Like when you finish a complex structural analysis and know your calculations are solid. So here is what's going to happen. I'm moving out effective immediately. I've already purchased a house in West Shore, paid cash, closed last week. The $96,000 I contributed over 2 years, consider it tuition for the lesson you just learned." "You can't just leave," Ashley said, panic creeping into her voice. "What about the kids? What about childcare? What about the kids can visit me in my new home with supervision? As for childcare, I suggest you budget for it. You might have to sell some of those handbags." Patricia handed Dennis another document. "This is a cease and desist order regarding the fraudulent charity claims. Ashley has 72 hours to contact the Veterans Organization and return all money fraudulently obtained. Failure to do so will result in criminal charges." Dennis was staring at his wife like he'd never seen her before, like an engineer discovering that someone had been falsifying stress test reports. "Ashley, you told me your blog wasn't making money. You said we needed Dad's help to make ends meet. I was building something." Ashley said, tears starting. "Real ones this time, not the fake ones Shed coached Sophie to produce. The blog, the brand, it takes time to—" "You were stealing," Dennis said quietly. "From my father, from charities, from sick people who needed those medications. You made me think he was a burden when he was supporting us." The meeting ended with Ashley signing agreements to stop her fraudulent activities and Dennis agreeing to supervised visitation arrangements for the grandchildren. I walked out of that office feeling lighter than I had in years, like I'd finally solved a structural problem that had been eating at me for months. My new house in West Shore is everything their garage apartment wasn't. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, an actual office with built-in bookshelves where I can spread out engineering drawings if I want to take on consulting work. There's a pool where Sophie and Ryan can visit every Saturday afternoon, and a dock where I can teach Ryan to fish when he's old enough to hold a rod steady. I had it furnished and move-in ready within 2 weeks. When you have $6.8 million and no need to qualify for a mortgage, things happen fast. Susan Campbell found me exactly what I wanted, a 1990s house with good bones that had been completely updated. New roof, new HVAC, electrical and plumbing that met current codes. The kind of place an engineer appreciates because somebody did the work right. Ashley tried calling me twice in the first month. I didn't answer. She left voicemails, crying, talking about how sorry she was, how she never meant for things to go this far. The second message was different. Angry, threatening to sue me for emotional distress, claiming I'd manipulated Dennis and destroyed their marriage. I saved both messages and forwarded them to Patricia. Evidence in case Ashley decided to escalate. Dennis called too, multiple times, apologizing, trying to rebuild something that might have been salvageable if he'd shown even a moment of backbone when it mattered. "Dad, I had no idea what she was doing. You have to believe me. If I'd known about the medications, the fraud, any of it. But that was the problem. He hadn't known because he hadn't wanted to know. For 2 years, Head let his wife treat his father like an unwanted house guest while taking my money and using my labor. Head chosen the path of least resistance every single time, and when Ashley demanded he choose between his wife and his father, he chose wrong. Dennis, I told him during one of those calls, I'm not angry about what you didn't know, I'm disappointed in what you chose not to see. The last I heard, Ashley's trying to restart her blog under a different name. Something about authentic living after trauma and rebuilding from rock bottom. The Veterans Organization turned her case over to the state attorney's office for prosecution. The fraud charges are still pending, but her lawyer thinks she'll get probation and community service if she pays back every penny. Dennis is working overtime to pay off the $47,000 in debt she hid from him. He moved back in with his parents, temporarily Ashley's parents, not mine, while they figure out if their marriage is salvageable. I hear through Sophie that Ashley's seeing a counselor trying to understand why she thought stealing from family was acceptable behavior. As for the kids, they visit me every Saturday from noon to 6. Court supervised at first, but Patricia's working to make it permanent. Sophie's learning to swim in my pool, starting with floating and breathing exercises. She's methodical about it, like her grandfather, wanting to master each step before moving to the next. Ryan's more impulsive. He wants to jump in the deep end immediately, but he listens when I explain why we start in the shallow water, why safety matters more than excitement. They don't ask many questions about why mommy and daddy aren't living together anymore. Kids are resilient that way, adapting to new routines without needing detailed explanations. Sophie knows Grandpa has a big house now, with a pool and a workshop. We're building her a dollhouse with working lights and real hardwood floors. Ryan knows there's a sandbox in the backyard and a fishing rod waiting for him when he's ready. I'm consulting part-time now for young engineers starting their own firms. Guys in their 30s and 40s who have the technical skills but need help with the business side, contracts, client management, how to price projects so you make money instead of just staying busy. It's rewarding work, passing along what I learned during 30 years of building Coleman Engineering from a one-man operation into a firm that employed 18 people at its peak. Last month, I started dating a widow named Barbara Wilson, who I met at the hardware store. She was trying to figure out why her garbage disposal wasn't working, and I offered to take a look. Turned out to be a simple jam. Someone had put potato peels down there and they'd wrapped around the impeller blades. 15 minutes with the right tools, and it was running like new. She invited me for coffee to say thank you. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into a weekend trip to Cedar Key, where we walked the beach and talked about everything except our dead spouses and disappointing children. Barbara's got 2 grown daughters who live in North Carolina and call her every Sunday. She's got grandchildren she sees twice a year and doesn't complain about the distance. She's got her own house, her own money, her own life that doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. For the first time since Sarah died, I'm thinking about the future instead of just surviving the present. Barbara and I are planning a cruise to Alaska next spring, something I never would have done while living in that garage apartment, pretending to be grateful for whatever scraps of dignity Ashley chose to leave me. The funniest part is that Ashley was right about one thing: I was dragging them down, but not financially. I was dragging down their ability to live beyond their means, to commit fraud without consequences, to treat family like disposable resources that existed for their convenience. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is letting them experience the full consequences of their choices. Ashley wanted the old man out of her house. She got exactly what she asked for. She just didn't realize the old man was taking $608 million with him when he left. These days, when Sophie asks why she can't have sleepovers at Daddy's house anymore, I tell her that sometimes grown-ups need time to learn how to make better choices. When Ryan asks if I'm still sick, I show him my blood pressure monitor and let him help me take my daily reading. Normal numbers, thanks to medication I now keep locked in a safe. They're good kids. They deserved better than parents who saw their grandfather as either a wallet or a burden, nothing in between. As for Dennis and Ashley, they're welcome to rebuild their relationship with me, but it'll be on my terms now, in my house, with my rules. No more playing the grateful guest, no more tests. I know exactly who I'm dealing with now, and for the first time in 3 years, that's enough. Real family love isn't conditional on your bank account. It exists whether you're rich or poor, sick or healthy, convenient or inconvenient. The biggest mistake you can make is assuming someone's financial situation defines their worth, because the day you discover you were wrong is the day you lose everything that actually mattered.